Episode 50, talking about crypto security with Ray Redacted.
Interested in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is a very vague concept to a lot of people.
Need to know more about cryptocurrency?
We're going to talk about the basics. This is something that people just have no idea about what crypto is.
How about buying, selling, and mining?
Tony, I think that's one of the things that's going to make us a little different from some other shows.
We're getting our hands dirty.
Then listen to Gary Leland and Tony Sakala, better known as the Crypto Cousins, on the Crypto Cousins podcast. This week's price.
Price of Bitcoin, $6,775. That's up $68.35, or 1% over the last 7 days. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Gary Leland here.
And this is Tony Sakala.
And we are the Crypto Cousins. Hey, Tony, how you doing, dude?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really excited this morning. We're really on track with a great conference.
Mm-hmm. We do have a great conference going up. Let's cover that in a little bit, though. I'm excited about the price of Bitcoin, though.
The price of Bitcoin is
even though
moving.
it's only up 1%.
1%.
Yesterday and today yesterday was like $300. That was kind of cool.
Yes. Well, it could be down again in an eye blink. There's really no telling what's going on with the manipulation. Some people feel like there's a lot of manipulation. Some people say maybe not. But I think whenever there's a lot of money involved, you're going to get people messing around with it. And we see that with all of the markets.
Messing around. That's what we call it, right? Messing around.
Messing around. Ronnie Moaz told us all about that.
Yes, messing around. So I like that term. Hey, I found this, we got a couple of things I put in here. I thought this was kind of a good thing for crypto. Is that the SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission, they said that Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities. So I think that's a good thing.
I think, people are excited about that. And my response is I don't give a flying flip about what the SEC says.
Well, I think if the SEC says that, it will get some people in there who might be hesitant to get in there, which in return will make the price of Bitcoin go up, which in return will make me more money.
That's really good. Looking at the bottom line. Exactly.
So that's how I'm looking at it. I see nothing negative about that comment that Bitcoin and Ethereum are not considered securities. I think that's just positive. And I like positive news.
That it is.
And then the other thing I found interesting is that an article I read on the CIA, the FBI, and actually it even says Homeland Security, that everybody knows who Nakamoto Satoshi is.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Well, a long time ago, a good friend of ours, Alexander Muse, wrote that a friend of his who's in one of those three-letter agencies told Alexander, he said, we know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. He said that they studied the writing and used a stylometric analysis, which basically says that we all write in our own unique way, basically how our thoughts work and how we put the words together, and that they knew distinctly, explicitly who he was.
And also, even like Edward Snowden, in his documents he released, said the NSA had been keeping people's Bitcoin information, their addresses, their emails, and all this stuff. So among them all, everybody who's been trying to track this, supposedly someone's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, do we know Alexander Muse?
Alex, he's big in the startup community. And he used to have those, if you remember back in the day, he used to have those events where come and drink a beer and hang out and learn about startups. Startup beer, what would he call it? It was something, something where he would host it at his offices.
Is that in Dallas here?
Yeah, right here in Dallas. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I even knew this dude.
So yeah, so it might be if that's the article you're referring to.
It is the article I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had sent a letter like to the NSA or the CIA and the FBI saying, I want the Freedom of Information Act on anything about who is Satoshi Nakamoto. And one hasn't replied, but the other one said, we don't know what you're talking about. We're neither saying we do or do not have any information on that.
Won't confirm or nor deny.
Yeah, so, but there also been rumors that the CIA started Bitcoin. You told me that one conspiracy theory.
Right.
Because Tony is kind of a little conspiracy theory
I read
guy.
I'm in all those underground forums, and we're talking about it. And yeah, so the idea that the NSA was behind it and created it, and is something to consider. I consider all possibilities. If you throw out ideas out of hand without even considering them, well, then you're really creating artificial blind spot for yourself.
Well, that sounds like a logical thing to say from a logical mind. Hey, and tomorrow's 4-Minute Crypto is covering this subject. So it wasn't going to be this morning's, Tony, but I slept late and didn't get it recorded. So there was not a 4-Minute Crypto. Today was 4-Minute Crypto less.
Oh, wow. I was telling everyone last night while I was out drinking with buddies, I said, Gary's up every day doing 4-Minute Crypto.
I was, and I went to an event last night that had drinking involved, and I slept in late this morning, and I rolled out of bed and said, gosh, I need to do this. And I said, you know what? I think I'm just going to miss a day.
Well, look at that. I guess we were both celebrating our 50th episode.
50, that's what this is, the 50th episode.
So we can't drink in the morning at the actual podcast, so we drank last night.
Yeah, so in separate facilities. We were texting everybody. Tony was going, cheers, and I texted him back and said, cheers to you, dude. And he texted me back and goes, I'm getting another one. I'm going, me too. So we were having, we got a question here from Cousin Chris.
Before we start in with Cousin Chris, I just want to mention one more headline that we didn't put on.
Yeah. Well, you should have put it on here, dude.
I'm moving slow. I'm moving a little slow. And it's called Satoshi's .place. And Satoshi's
I looked at that yesterday.
Yeah.
That reminds me of some website I saw years and years ago where you could buy pixels.
The $1 million website.
Is that what it was called?
Remember
I know
that?
you could buy pixels, and you could buy like 4 of them or 10 of them and put whatever you want there.
You could buy pixels, exactly. That was a really fun website. And this is called Satoshi's .place. And people can draw pictures. And every time they draw, they spend a Satoshi to make the image come up, make that pixel come up. And it's running on the Lightning Network. And they're doing thousands of transactions per day. And it's a great test bed for seeing, well, how could Lightning Network work in the real world? That was the first one, and now people are actually playing online games. I forgot the game, like a Pokemon. I think it's Pokemon. They're playing online Pokemon, and you pay a Satoshi to tell the character to do one command or something.
Well, that sounds exciting.
So if anyone's interested in seeing the excitement, and of course, unlike CryptoKitties, Satoshi's Place is running off the blockchain, and the transactions are rectified or whatever the word is at the end of the day with one transaction. So it's not overwhelming the Bitcoin network to have this game running, unlike CryptoKitties. Well,
that's exciting stuff there, Tony. And for those who don't know, Satoshi is the smallest denomination of Bitcoin, which is what, a millionth of a Bitcoin? Or
100 millionth of a Bitcoin.
100 millionth of a Bitcoin. And there are like, don't hold me to this, but maybe 5 or 6 Satoshis in a penny.
Something.
So it doesn't cost a lot to play that game. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they're really doing it as a financial income thing as much as an exercise in
exactly programming exercise and proof of concept.
So that's Satoshi.place, and we'll have the show notes for that in the or the website for that in the show notes. Now can we do the email, Tony?
Now we can do the email.
Okay, this is an email from Cousin Chris, and if you want to send us an email, send us your emails to thecryptocousins@gmail.com, thecryptocousins@gmail, or you can call in with a voice question at 747-777-9471. That's 747-777-9471. And today's question is for you, Tony. even though it does start out with "Hey guys," which would imply you and I. He just doesn't know that I'm not the one who knows anything about this subject. Just wanted to say your podcast has been best to listen to for a newbie. Well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. That's comments for you too.
Yeah, well, I will. That's not a question, though. That's just a comment. And I appreciate your comment there, Cousin Chris. Question about your Ethan machines. What coin products is it designed to mine? And for you regulars, I know that you've heard us talk about Ethans before, so don't get your panties all in a wad, but that is kind of how we sponsor the show, is by selling Ethans. So we will bring this up from time to time, especially to answer questions. So, Tony, what coins does the Ethan mining machine that we sell mine?
So the most famous coins that a GPU mining machine will mine is Ethereum, and it'll also mine Zcash. And these are the biggest coins, by market cap that we mine. But a GPU machine is like a general purpose computer. It will mine dozens and dozens and dozens of coins. Every day, as we speak, new coins are being created that a GPU or graphics processing unit type of mining machine will be able to mine. And the way to find out what coins can be mined is to go to CoinMarketCap, which is, whattomine.com. Whattomine is the right place. And whattomine.com has a whole list of coins that you can mine with the GPU, and it's the tab coins. So whattomine.com/coins, and you'll see that it'll mine different algorithms. The ET hash is the algorithm for Ethereum, so it'll mine Ethereum and also mine Ethereum Classic, so the ETC coin, which is going to be something to me, very interesting. That's a big one. That seems
to be a one that we may even want to switch over to that.
Right.
We usually don't talk about investing, but I just traded some Ethereum for ETC Classic because I think I can double my money in ETC Classic faster than I can Ethereum since it's going to be on Coinbase.
Mm-hmm. That's a very logical move.
And it has been up all week, a higher percentage every day than Ethereum has been. So,
well, I'm now surprised because you have a nose for these things, Gary.
I don't actually talk about what I pick very often, but usually what I pick seems to does seem to move. Sometimes I just don't sell it at the right time.
Well, you should if you're betting with the Coinbase Mafia, you're going to do well.
Yes.
I mean, these guys are definitely know what they're doing. They've got their fingers in a lot of pies. So anyway, that's the story. Whattomine.com/coins. Tons of coins to mine. It is a long list, dozens and dozens of coins. And we mine Pigeon Coin and Raven Coin, the two birds. We like those. We also mine. The list goes on and on. I mean,
Zcash.
Making recommendations. Zcash is what we start when we ship.
What's this new thing we're working with? Nervernia or something?
Yeah, the Nerva coin. We'll just throw that out there for folks that are interested. Nerva is a CPU-only coin. It only works with CPU. So a GPU miner or an ASIC miner are blocked from running Nerva, and that's the point of the Nerva coin.
It's only really worth around a penny. So I mean,
something like that. Yeah,
you can get a buttload of it.
You get a buttload if you have a lot of computers, like a Core i7 or a Core i5, you can do very well.
But if you want to see the Ethan miner, go to Turnkey Mining. Is it turnkeymining.com?
Correct.
Okay, I get it confused with Turnkey Miner. We probably should buy that and point it to. But go to turnkeymining.com. The only thing on there is the Ethan miner, and I think we have one in stock. We have a hard time getting the parts to build those sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that's it. And thanks again, Chris, for your question. And now let's go to our other topic that we're pushing right now, BitBlock Boom. Can you say that 3 times real quick, Tony?
No.
This is a Bitcoin conference. That's what I'm calling it, a Bitcoin conference. Not a crypto conference. It's a Bitcoin conference. I mean, everybody took the speakers. It really is a Bitcoin conference.
It really is. I mean, we decided to, I'm a big fan of going the other way. Everybody's zigging. We're zagging. We're also zagging because I believe that A lot of the coins that show up on CoinMarketCap won't be here in a year or two because they're just clones. They're just a way for the founder to make a lot of money. So, Gary and I feel strongly that Ripple is just a joke. It has nothing to do with cryptocurrencies. Someone posted on Twitter, basically Ripple is like if Satoshi Nakamoto pre-mined all 21 million coins and gave 16 million to his friends. That's what Ripple is.
Oh, yeah. That's why they're giving away millions all the time to people. They gave away $2 million the other day at the University of Texas at Austin.
There you go. It's like, hey, we just created some magical internet money.
Here, you want some? We'll just make some more.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's the exact same system that was in place before. Who do you know? Brad Garlinghouse was the most wealthy man on the planet for a few hours when Ripple had triple, doubled, whatever it had done.
When they were showing you how to buy it on MSNBC.
Exactly. Yeah. That was bizarre.
But that's going to be July the 14th, 2018, of course, this year, July 14th. And it's going to be in Addison, Texas at the Renaissance.
Yeah, the beautiful Renaissance, which used to be the Intercontinental.
Yeah, I told someone last night about it, and they're going, Renaissance, where's that at? And I said, it used to be the Intercontinental. And they were like, oh, yeah, I know where that's at. But we have a lot of speakers. One of them is Ray Redacted, who we're interviewing today about security. So you can kind of get a glimpse about him. And then we have a Bitcoin brunch Sunday from 10 to 1. That's like an extra thing you can come to. And then we have a contest going on right now for tickets to BitBlock Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And now is when we announce the winner for the 2 tickets for this week. But if you want to enter the contest for next week, go to your Twitter account. Twitter about BitBlock Boom, add the hashtag BitBlock Boom, and an image from bitblockboom.com. And is that it? Tweet
That's
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Add the hashtag BitBlock Boom
mm-hmm.
and an image from bitblockboom.com, the website. And then we'll look at them next Tuesday. We'll pick one person as a winner. And today's winner is, Tony, you want to make the big announcement here today?
Joey Abna.
Joey Abna is the winner for 2 tickets to BitBlock Boom. Joey, all you have to do is go to Twitter from your account, tweet Tony at Tony Sakala or me at Gary Leland or crypto_cousins, either one of them, and say, I want my 2 tickets. And we'll know it's you because it'll come from your account, and we will send you a code to get your 2 tickets.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because we don't want to hear from Joey Abna 111 or something like that because everybody's got a fake account now, anybody who's famous. Who knows how many fake accounts Joey has.
Oh, Joey's got a bunch of them, I heard. I heard he was like running a ring. But Joey, congratulations. And everybody else, enter for free tickets for next week's contest. It's a pretty easy contest to enter.
Well, you've done a good job, Gary. It's easy enough, but it still requires some effort, and we're excited to see new faces come out.
But if nothing else, go check out the conference, at BitBlock Boom. Even if you don't win a ticket, you're probably going to want to go. And if you do want to go and you didn't win a ticket, if you use the code COUSINS, COUSINS, that'll get you 50% off for being a listener of this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So we're excited because not only do we have amazing speakers, but we have a platinum sponsor, Crypto Unicorn Money, and those guys are just really crushing it in the proof of stake world. Gary and I have talked with Casey about this for a while. Casey's been on the show, and he's just really crushing it because he understands that proof of work is not the only game in town, and some of these coins are paying off dividends, and dividends are pretty cool to just put your coins in a wallet and you're going to get money back. But it's a lot of technical work and people don't want to figure that out. So Casey takes care of that. He builds a master node and you get a seat on the master node. And for 4%, like a mining pool is like 1 or 2% that you pay. So for 4%, you pay Casey's company, Crypto Unicorn Money, you're going to get this dividends coming back from the different coins.
Correcto Mundo, and check out his website, cryptounicorn.money. So check that out, BitBlock Boom. Now, let's see. Today's interview is with Ray Redacted. Tony, you want to give him a little piece of his bio there before we go to the show so they can know what he is all about?
Well, Ray Redacted is, obviously a pseudonym for a network and information security researcher. Now, I mean, if someone really wants to dig in, they can figure out who Ray is, of course. But he likes to go by Ray Redacted, and he's got 20 years experience in cyber defense research. I came across one of his talks. I think you recommended that I watch it, Gary. And,
gosh, who'd you see last night, my friend?
Oh, yeah, your friend. So Andy Tompkins.
Yeah, cousin Andy recommended. Andy saw him speaking and said, "Hey, Gary, you need to have this guy on your show."
He recommended because he really did a great job at the local Dallas hackers.
So now he's on our show. Now he's at our conference.
And in fact, Andy said yesterday that I should go to the next meetup and talk about BitBlock Boom, and so he's going to make that happen.
Cool.
So. Back to Ray. He's a frequent writer, researcher, and speaker on topics such as encryption and malware reverse engineering. In addition to a degree from Purdue University and numerous industry certifications, he has many years of frontline experience in the prevention and mitigation of attacks from cyber criminals, hacktivist groups, and nation-state actors.
Well, it sounds like he knows his stuff. I was not included in this interview. I was busy at the moment, so I haven't even heard this yet. So Tony did this one on his own, so I'm curious to see, number one, how Tony did without me around. And number two,
I think I pushed the right buttons.
And number two, I'm just interested to hear it. So let's go to the interview.
Hello, Ray. This is Tony from Crypto Cousins. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi, Tony, and it's good to be here.
Well, we're excited to talk today about security because we have had in the news all kinds of things going on. Just recently, hacks were coming in on multiple coins, and I think people are really concerned about this issue. In fact, when Gary and I do a meetup, the one thing that happens, the one question, the very first question people have is, how can I secure my crypto? I'm really concerned. So tell us a little about your background, Ray. What got you interested in crypto?
Yes, so I'm the Vice President of Technology for a global cybersecurity company that protects companies in the Fortune 500 from threat actors, from everything from governments and nation states to script kiddies and advanced persistent threats, insider threats, etc. And I took a particular interest in this role because of my interest in cryptography and the overlap into cryptocurrency. So it was a natural kind of connection between those two.
Well, this topic is not just for companies anymore. It seems like the average person is targeted, and they are now taking many more chances with not only putting their information, banking information, that sort of thing, but actually putting their crypto out there online. Maybe we should just start with the basics. What are some of the most important things people should know about keeping crypto active?
Yeah, so first of all, you're absolutely right that it's changed. The risk has changed very dramatically for the average person. Like if you think in terms of what you used to do online 5 or 6 years ago, you might be concerned that somebody might break into your American Express account or even your bank account, but they couldn't really do that much damage. You weren't liable if they used your credit card without your authorization, and they couldn't exactly wire money out of your credit union or your bank because it just wasn't really feasible. Whereas today, if somebody breaks in and takes your crypto assets, not only are they going to probably get away with it because there's so many different ways that they can basically get that off site and hide where it was actually going, but also there's not a lot of recourse. Those charges, of course, fundamental in the blockchain is that they're not reversible, right? So that thing that generally makes cryptocurrency so appealing can also mean that you're playing with a very, very sharp knife when it comes to fraud, because you can't charge it back, which is one of the reasons why, it doesn't have those crazy fees that are associated with banking. But some of the most important things to know about how you should keep your crypto assets secure really have to do with the words OPSEC, InfoSec, and what those actually refer to is operational security, or the way that you actually behave yourself, the practices that you have. Information security, which is how you actually protect things like your credentials, your logins, your passwords, the use of something called multi-factor authentication that I think we're going to talk about quite a bit here in a few minutes. And, of course, the concept of hygiene. So when we talk about security, it's very important to understand the concept of security hygiene.
Security hygiene. Now, that's a word I don't hear often. Could you maybe elaborate or explain what you mean by security hygiene?
Sure. So when we think of normal hygiene, just think about the word hygiene in general. That actually refers to conditions or practices that let you maintain health or prevent disease. Okay? And generally we think of, like, for example, dental hygiene. And dental hygiene isn't just brushing your teeth, okay, although that's a part of it. It's also drinking fluoride in the water. It's also flossing. It's also going and seeing the dentist. And so all of those behaviors kind of summed together are stronger than any one of them would be by itself, and even stronger than they would be if you just individually added them up in order to have good dental hygiene. Well, the way it works with security hygiene is you don't necessarily have to dental floss, but you have subsections such as patch hygiene, password hygiene, which is extremely critical, and air gap hygiene. Okay, and there's a whole lot of different ways around that. But for example, password hygiene is, of course, having difficult passwords, which, you know, most people know that you need to have long and complex passwords using upper and lower case, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But the very, very most important thing of all is not to reuse passwords, because the vast majority of Americans have 37 different logins and passwords, mm-hmm. and a very large chunk of them are still using the same passwords across all sites. And the reason we know that is because when we see a data breach, like the very large LinkedIn data breach, or some of the data breaches that have included Yahoo, we see the same passwords over and over and over. And that really is actually sort of, in the dental hygiene analogy, that's the equivalent of never brushing your teeth at all, is to reuse the same passwords.
So if someone's password's been published from one of those breaches and they fix it on LinkedIn, but they forget to fix it on their bank account, that's a big problem.
For sure. And these are automated tools that are going to attempt to basically what's called brute force, basically the list of those folks. So good password hygiene means having unique passwords for each and every site. Okay. There's also the ones that most of us know, just like you know how to keep your teeth clean, just like you know you need to floss, so to speak. Well, that equivalent would be patch hygiene, and that means accepting security updates, both from an antivirus or anti-malware standpoint, but also your applications and your operating system. Extremely important to keep those up to date. And most people know that. Like, for example, if you think about the way we used to do our computers a few years ago, it might pop up and say, I've got 31 updates, and you would say, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next week. Mm-hmm. But I think we're getting better about flossing, right? Because most people know that when a new breach comes along, in many cases, it may be based on something that had just been patched before. So one of the other ones that's kind of unique to cryptocurrency is, and maybe some folks haven't ever heard of this one before, but it's all part of security hygiene, is what's called air gap hygiene. And what air gap hygiene means is that one of the fundamental, most important things to understand about cryptocurrency is if you don't own the keys, then you don't own the asset. And where you keep that private key is absolutely vital to that asset. Right? Most wallets will have a public address and a private key. And the best practice for how to protect those keys is to not keep them online. So you do not necessarily want them in online exchanges, because online exchanges are hacked. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Mm-hmm. Almost every single major online exchange eventually will be hacked. And so what most folks, and I know I've heard you and Gary talk about a couple different options around this, will do is get what's called a hardware wallet, which is a secure device that holds those private keys. And then you only access it through that hardened device. Or they might have a machine that is specifically dedicated only to their wallet app, which is, I think, what Gary does with his wallets. Those are great practices. However, it's really, really important to remember to keep that air gap, that lack of connectivity. So you don't necessarily want your kids installing games on your machine that you use only for your wallet, or you don't necessarily want that exposed to the internet unnecessarily. So those are all kind of parts of security hygiene around crypto assets. Now, the other thing that's really crazy, and this is where the dental analogy breaks down, is in order to have security hygiene, you also need to have situational awareness of the changing threats, okay? And whereas we're still fighting the same kind of tooth decay issues that we were 500 years ago, the evolving threats in the cryptocurrency world are absolutely 100% one of the most important things to pay attention to, because our adversaries are getting so much more complicated and they're getting so much more complex around things such as phishing attacks or social engineering attacks. And I should probably back up, Tony, and tell you a little bit about what that means. That basically all social engineering refers to when someone uses human psychology to get access to credentials that they should not have. So the most classic example of social engineering is you get an email that says your password has been reset. Click here to log in, and it looks exactly like it's coming from Gmail, but you click that button, and of course you're being asked to give your username and your password, but it's not. It's a fake version of that site, and they've just got your credentials, right? Mm-hmm. That type of social engineering is called phishing, spelled with a PH, and it is one of the most successful ways that people get a hold of credentials and then penetrate beyond that. That's the actual phishing.
Because it looks exactly the same, right? The email looks the same. The logos look the same.
100%. And we used to tell the users to pay attention by putting their mouse over it to see if the domain looked weird, or maybe look for spelling errors. But these days, the attackers are so sophisticated, you cannot expect an end user to be able to tell the difference, right? So even some of the most famous phishing of all time are extremely sophisticated attacks. So it's very difficult to tell. So that's why you really need to get out of the practice of clicking things in emails. In the case of what we've seen a humongous uptick of in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I know that you guys have a very active Twitter account, a very active Twitter following. But in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen an absolute explosion of these scams on Twitter, where someone like Elon Musk or Vitalik or anyone else will make a tweet with the verified account, and a whole bunch of fake impersonators will then pop up and say, I'm giving away ETH. Send me 0.1 ETH. You've seen these, right?
They're everywhere. I mean, It's like you cannot tweet without seeing something about that. And it seems to me to be like an explosion of this sort of scam. And I just wonder if people fall for it. I mean, I have no idea, but it just seems too good to be true. Maybe that's part of this prevention. You ask yourself, is it too good to be true?
Yes, it absolutely is an explosion. And I'll tell you, if we think of it in terms of the phishing example that I gave about clicking emails, is a lot of those Twitter scams, historically, you looked for that blue check mark, right? Mm-hmm. And that blue check mark meant that Elon Musk was really Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. But the scammers have even figured out how to hijack verified accounts so that it actually even the fake ones still have that blue check mark by them, et cetera. So, and that is a real problem right now for many of us, because what the criminals have figured out is that people who are into cryptocurrency frequent a clump together, basically, and kind of read each other's tweets and interact with the same types of folks. And a type of cyber attack that we used to call a watering hole attack, and I'll tell you why that was called that in just a minute, was when somebody would put up an attractive target. And for example, if they knew that a certain corporation went to a certain news site at a certain time of day, they would put up a fake version of that news site, but only for the people that they were targeting. So those crypto scams on Twitter, of which there's the extremely annoying, I'm giving away Ethereum 0.1, send me back 10, mm-hmm. where they even fake transfers to themselves and even set up fake accounts to make it look like someone else is making all this money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also watering hole attacks because they know that certain people are going to be frequenting those same ones, and they also know that it's a target-rich environment because even though a very, very small percentage of Americans own cryptocurrencies, if you go to crypto Twitter, the percentages are very, very high, and certainly among the new users that are out there. And this really drives home the point that we have, and this is why we have to be so vigilant when it comes to cyber threats and around crypto assets, because the risk-reward ratio for threat actors to mount an attack where you impersonate Elon Musk and put up a fake Ethereum address or put up an address and fake it like you're giving out all this free Ethereum is almost nothing. Okay, you could do that for under $1, right? And if you get 20 people to fall for it, I mean that's a pretty good living, especially if you're in a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States or with Western Europe. So the chances of them being caught are almost zero. Okay, and the risk, the reward is extremely high. The effort is very, very low, and then it's compounded by the fact that Twitter has been completely ineffective in stopping these or thwarting these. So other criminals are seeing other criminals successfully doing it, and now you can get toolkits that'll help you. So this has become the scourge of crypto Twitter, and it's only going to get worse over time. So we haven't really seen those kind of scams over email or over text messages or really necessarily over Telegram. But those are threat vectors that can be susceptible to these kind of scams as well, and we can expect to see threat actors eventually evolve once Twitter really gets a hold on stopping this problem.
So it's not going to stop at Twitter. It really is part because that's where the people are. That is the watering hole. People talking about crypto, they're tweeting about Ethereum, and so they're following these people like Vitalik or Elon Musk, and then they're the target.
100%. And so this actually goes back to the operational security that we were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast, because you should never, ever, and I know that you and Gary are very good at this, but you should never actually publicly discuss how many of a certain token or a certain asset that you own. And you see people on Twitter do this all the time, where they'll actually post a picture of their portfolio with numbers and everything. And all that does is draw a huge target on your back. So if you post something that looks like, you've got $100,000 in BCH or Bitcoin Cash, you're going to get, hundreds of private messages from people trying to scam you out of it because you've just now announced that you have that asset, right? Mm-hmm. So in general, OPSEC on Twitter is, if you're going to discuss things around your crypto assets, you do it in very vague terms. Okay, you can talk about classes or even certain holdings, but you certainly don't ever say how many you have of certain things or the wallet addresses, because if someone has a wallet address, of course, in most cryptocurrencies, they can see how many you have, right?
Well, I agree that that is the most horrific thing to do, because you really are drawing a real big target on your back. Just like if someone, when someone wins the lottery and then they show them holding that big check on TV, they're going to get a lot of phone calls, not only from old family relatives, but from strangers looking to rip them off. I like to use the phrase, talk about Bitcoin, but never talk about your Bitcoins.
That's good. You can talk about the lottery, but never talk about your lottery winnings, right? Mm-hmm. Same kind of things. Mm-hmm. So, but at any rate, that actually makes yourself susceptible to these attacks, which lately have been coming in the form of social engineering around phishing and around Twitter. It also comes around not so much in the crypto world, but in the cybersecurity world with something called vishing, which is with a V.
That's new to me. Vishing with a V.
That's voicemail. That's voicemail. And then the newest one of all is smishing, which is
smishing.
It's the same SMS. It's the same thing over SMS. So unfortunately, we have a real problem in our phone systems today because our SMS systems are insanely insecure. So if you are an iPhone user, you'll know that when you get a green message, it's very different than when you get a blue message. Mm-hmm. Those messages, those short message services are very easy to spoof. Because it relies on a trusted sender, so to speak. And it's very much increasingly being used, part of social engineering attacks, to get people to basically reset their cryptocurrency accounts. So it's been all over the news recently that T-Mobile and one other major carrier had left their systems pretty wide open so that a threat actor or a criminal could port your number away from you. Okay. And in most cases, if they knew your email address, they might be able to take control of your Gmail as well, right? And once you have someone's Gmail, you can reset their passwords on the online exchanges. You can, in many cases, get to a lot of different assets. So it's very, very important to be aware of the fact that SMS itself is not a secure way of protecting your online accounts. You really need to use a different type of multi-factor authentication. And
so people use the SMS, they think they're doing a good thing. So I've got two-factor authorization. I get my little text message. What do you recommend is the way to go then?
Well, and it's not the people's fault for thinking that, because our banks, the major banks, still use SMS as a verification, even PayPal. So with PayPal, if you want to go to PayPal, it says, hey, do you want me to send you a second factor? It's over SMS, which is really not very secure. So in general, you want a second factor using something like Authy, which is AUTHY, or Google Authenticator, or a hardware solution like the YubiKeys, which is an actual USB key. Now, I myself can see the pluses and minuses in all three. Certainly having the hardware key is nice. The thing that's nice about Authy is you can run it on an Apple Watch, or you can run it on a phone and a laptop, right? And the thing about Google Authenticator is it's kind of tied to your Google account, which it may or may not be a good thing, right? If you think in terms of if your Google account is breached, do you want to lose access to that? But what's really important is that you have something. And that's probably the most important advice that I could give anybody who's concerned about protecting their crypto assets is you need to use multi-factor authentication on every single website, not just your cryptocurrency websites, but your Gmail, your Facebook, your Twitter, every single site that you have that will support it, you should enable multi-factor. And I know there's people listening to this thinking, oh my God, Ray, that sounds like a huge pain. But it really isn't, because the way it works, for example, with Gmail is they don't make you put in that code every time. They just make you put that code in if you're suddenly in China, or if you're suddenly on a new machine, or if you make 2 password attempts that are wrong. So it's actually more about protecting you from unknown logins. And by forcing yourself to only use sites that support that and always have that enabled, you will know something is wrong if you ever go to, for example, let's say you're going to Mercatox or Cryptopia or one of the sites that's completely hosted outside the United States. If you ever go to log into that page and suddenly it doesn't ask you for your multi-factor token, then you know something is amiss, right? You know that something is wrong because you've conditioned yourself to always use that multi-factor authentication. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice. I was going to save that for the end of today, but that's actually worth emphasizing now, is turn on that multi-factor everywhere you can. And really, if there's a financial site or a crypto site that doesn't support multi-factor, they have no business. They'd be having your business. You really shouldn't be involved in those, because it's from a security best practice standpoint, everyone should support multi-factor.
Well, it sounds like that's going to be a big pain for people, because people don't want to make an extra effort. I mean, what happened? There's that guy in Honolulu. It was a weather guy, and they had the yellow sticky, and his password was on the yellow sticky in a photograph on the web.
For sure.
So I think the problem is people really need to recognize that it's going to take some effort.
Yes, 100%. 100%. But again, this is worth doing because we're not talking about, we're talking about protecting yourself and from the cryptocurrency side from a crime that cannot be reversed and that will not feasibly be prosecuted.
Well, unless you're Vitalik Buterin and $30 million were stolen off of the blockchain, then you'll make a new chain. But that is the crux of the matter. Cryptocurrency, once they've got it, that's it. They're gone.
For sure. Unless you can go back and forth things, unless you're that particularly large. But again, and we can only expect these types of attacks to get more and more sophisticated. And, it's really interesting because I know you have a wide variety of listeners. I know you have people that have been around cryptocurrency for years and probably have some that have only been on it for days. Mm-hmm. But a typical process for many people when they get into cryptocurrency is they usually start out with Coinbase, right? Mm-hmm. Coinbase is sort of the gateway. I don't want to say the gateway drug because I don't want to imply it's drugs, but it's kind of the gateway to all the others, right? And then eventually most people will discover like a Binance or a GateHub or another one of these sites that actually offers more coins than the four that Coinbase offers. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that happens, and again, this can be somewhat intimidating for new users, is there is a process that all of us know so well, known as KYC. Okay, and what KYC is it is the anti-money laundering rules around know your customer. Mm-hmm. Right? This is the part where, Tony, you had to send a picture of your passport in, or you had to send in your social security number and your bank name. Do you remember this?
Yes.
So here's the problem with that. If you have sent those documents in to, for example, Binance, you're sending some extremely sensitive information about yourself to China or to New Zealand or to Singapore or to Eastern Europe. And the more sites that you do KYC with, the less you have control over what we would normally consider to be extremely sensitive personal information that could be used for identity theft. And I'm not implying that anyone from Binance or GDAX or anyone else would necessarily steal your passport to try to impersonate you, but we really just don't know what their security processes are, right? When we think about Mt. Gox, everyone pretty much assumed that Mt. Gox, surely after the third breach, was protecting the coins, right? Surely after the fourth one, well, now they're really going to get serious. But we now know it had been going on for at least a year and a half. So the problem with the KYC is, and it's kind of a paradox, is in one way, you're better off having a multitude of exchanges. But on the other hand, every time you send those documents out, you're putting yourself unnecessarily at risk. And so that might draw you to the other half of the paradox, which is, okay, well, maybe, you know what, Ray, I'll just use sites that don't require KYC, right? There's a few of those, right? Mercatox doesn't require any documentation. Cryptopia.co.nz, they don't ask for a driver's license. Mm-hmm. But the problem with those sites is now you are giving exchanges custodial control of your private keys, and they're not just unregulated by U.S. laws; they're unregulated even by European laws, right? And I don't mean to pick on Mercatox at all, but Mercatox was basically an exchange set up between five buddies that wanted to swap cryptocurrencies between themselves, right? Wow. It was never really intended to be a multi-billion-dollar a year business. And so the more lax an exchange is about KYC, the more lax they may be about other things, as well. So it's a complete paradox, right? Because if you only focused everything on Binance, and I keep mentioning Binance because I know that Crypto Cousins has a referral code in the show notes. But if you only use Binance, you are putting yourself at risk unnecessarily because, for example, daily limits for withdrawals require more and more deeper KYC because you really don't know who's actually controlling the packets in and out, who's monitoring the packets in and out. It's a paradox because on one hand, you need more sites you could use in order to get liquidity and in order to be able to transfer in and out of your hardware wallet quicker. But on the other hand, the more you expose yourself to, the more that you could actually be attacked. So that's a very big dilemma. And by the way, you'll notice that we didn't really mention any sites hosted in England, okay, or any sites hosted in Europe. And there's a real specific reason for that. And that is that a set of data regulation laws just came into effect on the 25th of May. You've probably heard of GDPR. And if you haven't heard of, I'm sure your email box is full of our privacy notices changed notices. I think I got about 100 of those the other day.
Right.
But GDPR is actually a set of rules that are designed to protect us, to protect the consumers and their data. And that's why a lot of these online exchanges are fleeing from GDPR countries and going to places, like Taiwan and Malta and Hong Kong.
So regarding exchanges, some people have said, I know I've said it, that 2018 is the year of the distributed exchange, where the actual keys are not kept on the exchange, where you are working in a distributed fashion to trade with others, and it prevents the KYC problem from occurring because you never give the information to the exchange. What are your ideas on something like that? BISC and some of the other, I think Binance or Kraken is looking at doing their own distributed exchange.
Well, sure. So in the model that we were just discussing, we were talking about centralized custodial exchanges, meaning they are holding your keys, right? Mm-hmm. So that custodial part refers to they don't just have your addresses, they actually have the private keys. And in some cases, they'll give you the private keys if you insist, but they still have them, right? Mm-hmm. I know that I think it was the gentleman from Exodus Wallet. Was that Chris Merkel? Was Chris Merkel on a few weeks ago? Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. So he was talking about the fact that one of the things that's so scary about the exchanges that are not centralized, the decentralized exchanges, is for newbies or for people that are relatively new, it can be particularly scary, right? To go to these sites and know that if you messed it up, if you sent Bitcoin Cash to a Bitcoin address, you could lose something. And there's very little hand holding that's going on the decentralized side. Mm-hmm. So there's a gap. There's a usability gap. And I think some of the wallet companies are providing that kind of hand holding support, either by integrating Shapeshift.io into their apps or by just simply providing that decentralized support that's there. I'm actually surprised that there's not really been something that was like semi-centralized, where you kind of had half of it, with the hand holding and half of it not. Because the reason that Coinbase has been so successful is because it's so easy for new people to use. It looks like an app that they have on their phone already, right? Mm-hmm. That piece. I think there's a huge opportunity for someone to come along and make decentralized exchanging way more user-friendly. Okay, think more like Apple, okay? Mm-hmm. Via an app that everyone was comfortable with. I think this could be the year for that.
I think there's a great opportunity. Chris Merkel recommended that people pay more attention to what they're doing to do the sort of security concerns that we're providing some tips here. And he said the number one thing they're doing is to work on the user interface and user support over their Exodus wallet. I mean, Gary loves the Exodus wallet. He uses it on his special machine that he uses as his wallet. And I really like it as well.
I do too. And I'm also very prone to the Edge wallet, which is an iOS non-custodial wallet, which means that they don't actually hold your coins, but they hold your addresses. I really like their UI. And I think Edge has got a mobile one coming out. I'm sorry. I think Edge has actually already got one that's out there, but there's going to be a lot. Now, I will also tell you that with Exodus coming into the mobile space, there's also a lot of people that say you should never put your cryptocurrency wallet on your mobile device because in some ways those are considered to be the most vulnerable devices, which I think that the compromise is non-custodial wallets like Edge, where you don't actually store anything on your telephones, right?
Right. So Cousin John McAfee said that every phone is already hacked. And he said every computer is already hacked. And he said that before Spectre and Meltdown even. Now we can really believe, after Spectre and Meltdown. I don't know if the listeners, maybe you give the listeners a brief idea of what those were.
Well, sure. So these are very, very low-level processor exploits that have existed for many years. In some cases, it may be as long as 16 years, and have just been recently kind of coming to light in a process that's known as a 0 day. A 0 day means that it was unpublished and it was unpatched before very recently. And if you think in terms of a lot of the security headlines, there's been a litany of these around just about everything from, even hardware wallets had 0 days exploited. I know Ledger actually pays a bug bounty for people to discover holes that can be poked in. And then that's why you have to patch that wallet that's out there. So we never really did talk about this part, but one of the biggest things to really think about around OPSEC is not using public Wi-Fi, okay, especially at cryptocurrency events like BitBlock Boom. And the reason is not because you can't trust the hotel, and it's not because you can't trust the organizers of the conference. It's because it is trivial and really cheap for someone to impersonate that Wi-Fi network. So in general, especially at target-rich environments like cryptocurrency conferences, you should avoid using public Wi-Fi at all. And if you absolutely must, you should at the very minimum use a VPN or a virtual private network on top of that, which maybe that's a whole nother topic that we can talk about at another date. But those are something else to kind of keep in mind.
That is great advice because, right, when you go to a conference, someone can just set up what looks to be a router in their bag, and they can just say hotel Wi-Fi free, or whatever, call it anything. And it's, when you're picking those choices, you just grab something. Generally, people don't think about that. And generally, people don't run a VPN on their laptop. That's something that security conscious people do, but the average person doesn't want to pay for a VPN.
But again, when you go to a cryptocurrency conference like Consensus or like BitBlock Boom, you should be aware that the chances of a cyber criminal doing what's called a man-in-the-middle attack are way higher because they know if they capture keystrokes or passwords, the payoff is going to be much higher as well. So those are types of, if you went to...
So we're basically creating a honeypot by doing a conference.
Correct. Like I wouldn't necessarily worry about using my church Wi-Fi, but I would certainly worry about using Consensus Wi-Fi when there's 8,000 people packed into a very small space and everyone seems to be accessing their Blockfolio.
Nope. So we've covered a lot of ground, and we're about 30 minutes in now. Is there any other topics? I'm looking at my list of questions, or anything else that you want to leave people with?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the biggest takeaways, if you fell asleep halfway through this discussion and just woke up, by the way, the biggest takeaways is really thinking about multi-factor authentication and thinking about private key hygiene, where you store those keys, whether it's a paper wallet that you keep in a safety deposit box, whether it's keeping a passphrase in a Trezor hardware wallet, whether it's having 2 Ledger wallets, whatever that is. You have to stick with the routine. You have to brush and floss daily because it only takes really one mistake for disaster to kind of strike. And then really keeping up with evolving threats. I mean, in general, you should always be wary of anyone who just wants to give you anything, but especially cryptocurrency. Okay, even if they appear to be your grandmother who just joined Twitter apparently and is now asking you to send her some Ethereum. You should always be particularly skeptical when dealing with crypto assets because, at the very end of the day, this is a huge opportunity for so many revolutionary things. But the price to pay is that we're all responsible for our own vigilance and our own protection. Because at the end of the day, if you lose it, it's really on you. There's not really much recourse to that. So we have to make sure that we're always vigilant.
I think that's a great message to end on. I think we've become very lax because our Visa says, okay, we'll take care of any losses. Your bank is insured to $250,000. But every penny you put in crypto, everything on your crypto wallet, once it goes away, there's no helpline, no one to call and get it back.
For sure.
Well, and we're excited to have you speak at BitBlock Boom next month. And your topic, I love your talk title, How to Get Your Cryptocurrency Stolen.
I thought we could kind of take some of the things we talked about today and reframe them in the ways that mistakes that people can make. I mean, in the security world, we often talk about best practices. At BitBlock Boom, I'm looking forward to talking about some worst practices.
Well, fantastic. We look forward to having you, Ray.
Thank you very much, Tony. And am I a cousin yet? Do I get to honor
Yes,
cousin
you're
status?
Officially a cousin. Cousin Ray, thank you for being on the show. We will speak of you in the future. It's Cousin Ray.
Thank you.
Well, welcome back, Tony. That was a pretty good job there.
I did a pretty good job, didn't I?
Yeah, you did okay on your own there, the young whippersnapper. And since you're like 5 years younger than me, I can say that, I guess. Young whippersnapper there.
Yes, we had a good time. Ray is he's really, really bright guy. And the most important thing with crypto, as you and I talk about all the time, is don't lose your private keys. Don't give them up. And we're going to hear from Ray at the conference with his talk, how to get your cryptocurrency stolen. Obviously, a interesting talk, giving the...
Well, I was wanting to learn how to do that because I haven't had any luck at that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that sounds like a great conference. I don't know how to do it because I have been very unlucky at getting my crypto stolen.
Well, that's good. Well, you'll learn even more. That's probably due to your skills.
Yeah, I don't have too many skills, but that was a good job. I enjoyed that a lot. Hey, and also make sure and check out our YouTube pages. We have two of them. We have youtube.com/cryptocousins and youtube.com/4minutecrypto. So check those out and subscribe and give us some likes and push the horn and whatever you do there. Big thanks to everybody.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Thank you. I knew you'd do something there. Big thanks to everybody that's been listening and subscribing and leaving reviews on iTunes. We got a bunch of reviews on iTunes for this show, Tony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really appreciate that. The cousins really seem to like us. We have a great following. We're hearing from people all around the world, and it's really that's inspiring. I appreciate the comments, and that really helps us to move along because we're sitting here in our offices just talking into a microphone, and we're not quite sure the impact we're making. But when we hear back from you and feel like we're making a difference, then that's the reason we're doing this.
And we're getting ready to start going to doing some live shows once a week. We were going to do it last week, and I dropped the boat. I had some issues that I think I have worked out.
Some technical issues that were outside of your control.
I think we'll maybe work that out this week. So we're trying to get some more stuff going. Like I said, please send us any questions you have, comments by voice at 747-777-9471 or email us at thecryptocousins@gmail.com. We want to get you guys involved. Anything you want to add before we get out of here, Tony?
No, I think we're ready to roll because we're both a little bit hungover.
Right? I'm not hungover.
Speak for myself. Okay.
I just slept in. I wasn't hungover. I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You slept off your hangover. That's right.
Well, that's the thing about just drinking vodka on the rocks. I don't think you get a hangover as much. You probably drink like something in Coke or something. What do you?
No, I had the same thing. I had vodka and sugar-free Red Bull.
Well, there you go. That Red Bull, that's what's giving you your hangover. Pumping that stuff in with that caffeine and stuff.
That's true.
Yeah. That mixer is what gives you the hangover, I think. So that's just 63 years of drinking experience.
Little tip from Gary. All right.
I'm not going to give you a crypto tip, but I'll give you a drinking tip here. But hey, everybody, thanks for listening and watching, and please come back again. I love you guys.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Crypto Cousins podcast. Please share this podcast with anyone you know that is interested in cryptocurrency. Your friends can subscribe on iTunes at cryptocousins.com/iTunes and on Android at cryptocousins.com/play. If you want to know more about Tony or Gary, just go to tonysakala.com or garyleland.com. Make sure and join us on the next episode, and thanks for listening. The Crypto Cousins podcast and information in the podcast are not intended as investment advice. Cryptocurrencies are risky. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. Always seek professional advice before making any investment. Investing in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies may present tremendous risks. Please understand that you are using any and all information available on or through the Crypto Cousins podcast at your own risk.